quick, and it's like, God, there is so much pressure on, and I want to be open and honest with you guys about it, because I remember my mum at one point being like, you know, are you okay? Do you want to speak about anything? Because I'm worried a bit about your weight. Oh, I don't know why you're with her, she's fat. Nervous, I was getting a lot of hate online, and I'm gonna be honest with you, there was a point where I feel like I look back on photos and I'm like, oh, you look a bit ill. A lot of people used to say like that I had a problem, like, oh, you've got an eating disorder. Hello honeys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're just joining me now, then hi, my name's Imogen, and if you're new here, then thank you so much for finding me. I hope you stay. So today I wanted to do a story time, which is about something that I feel like I've wanted to talk about for a very long time, especially back before I was pregnant. Not so much during pregnancy, but you know, it's definitely cropped up a little bit more now. So I feel like it's an important issue that we should be open about and talk about. And I wanted to tell you my kind of journey about weight, my journey of weight before, when I was younger, when I was in my teenage years, my insecurities. I wanted to talk to you about weight openly, very much in pregnancy, after pregnancy, before pregnancy. So just a trigger warning, I am going to be talking about weight. So for anyone that doesn't want to talk about things like that, or it triggers anyone, then please just don't watch, because I completely understand that anything that's going to trigger anyone, just switch it off. So I feel like for me, the reason I really want to talk about this is because I've been through different stages of weight fluctuating when I was younger, having a stomach condition, being older and growing up, and your body changes, and being on steroids, not being on steroids, and all those different things. And I feel like I've definitely put myself out there on the internet by being on YouTube and being on social media, but also along with that comes a constant question about weight, whether people want to say that you've lost too much weight, you're fat, you're chubby, why have you lost weight, how have you lost weight, you're too skinny, you're too big, all these different things. And I feel like obviously there is a way of caring about people, understandably, but I feel like if we were more open and chatted about things, and hopefully people will be more open to discuss things and talk about things and maybe question less, because I feel like, especially with women and men, just in general, I feel like there is too much talk about other people's weight. And of course, there's sometimes it comes from a good place, you know, your family and friends and people who genuinely care about you. But sometimes it comes from a place that maybe it's a trigger for someone, or potentially they're going through something themselves and it's triggering them to look at you, or it comes from a place where someone's trying to troll you because they're not happy in their own skin and they want to troll you and put you down, or just lots of different things. Or again, like I said, it could just come from a good place. But I feel like it was a lot when I was getting so many questions about my weight, and I feel like I want to talk openly about it and just give you a long, big chat and journey and my honesty and where I've been with weight, etc. So when I was growing up, I was brought up with my two loving, amazing parents who, my dad was actually a chef. So I had amazing meals. I was very, very fortunate. My dad managed to cook for all of us. We had students growing up. We had foreign students who lived in our house. My dad would cook for 8 of them and us. And yeah, it was just a constant amazingness around the table. And I never, ever, ever, ever grew up ever thinking anything bad about food. I never had a bad relationship with food. My parents always said to us, you know, have everything in moderation. I didn't moderate chocolate. Before my stomach condition, I used to eat dairy chocolate like it was going out of fashion. Like genuinely, this is a true story. My dad and mum used to hide the chocolate from me. So they'd have like a bag and it'd be like Breakaways, Twixes, the lot, you know, whatever. And my mum and dad would find new places. Like sometimes it'd be on the top of the cupboards. I would be able to climb up and get that. Sometimes it'd be in the washing machine, a plastic bag of chocolate in the washing machine. Sometimes it'd be hidden in the dishwasher. Sometimes they'd hide it in their ensuite. You're not getting around me, hun. I remember once eating 22 of the Kit Kats, the oranges, Kit Kat oranges. Oh, so good, so good, so good. I remember eating 2 packs of those, so it was 11 in a pack. I think it was 11 in a pack, in 2 days. I remember eating a whole Toblerone in 1 day and leaving my dad 1 triangle. And I remember he went like this and it fell and he was like, Imogen. But I basically grew up around parents who obviously didn't want me to eat 22 chocolate bars in 2 days because of my heart. but they never spoke badly about weight in front of me or food. And I had a very healthy relationship with food. You know, we'd have the odd McDonald's here and there. They just said everything in moderation. You know, we'd have a takeaway if it was a really special treat. And that's how I perceived food and my body. Growing up, I was a dancer. And I don't know whether this was because of dancing or it was just my natural physique, but I have always had muscular legs. I remember when I was in ballet, I did used to struggle with that when I was younger, because I'd look at everyone else, especially because I was an associate in London, Royal Ballet, etc. I definitely started to notice that my body was a little bit, they had muscular legs, but I think especially in ballet, our bones were weighed and all those different things to see if you would be suitable, if you'd grow and stuff like that. And I know that some professions still go through that. I did start to notice as I got older that, obviously, by the way, this is me never saying this because I hate these words, I hate this word. And also I'm really, really worried in this video that I'm gonna come across and offend anyone. I really, really, really am telling you. I've got notes in front of me because let me tell you, telling story times is very difficult. And especially when you've given birth, your brain, I don't know what it is, pregnancy brain, postpartum brain, I'm still in there. I forget everything. I call Spencer all my family's name before I get to call him Spencer. I'm like, Hugo, Jacob, Spencer, Dad. I've just said Spencer then, so that wasn't a very good, that wasn't a really good indicator. But I've never been overweight. I've always been a healthy weight. What they say, overweight. However, I used to compare my body and be a little bit like, oh, my stomach has a little pop at the bottom, like I have a little pot belly at the bottom, and I'm not completely flat like the other girls. This is how my younger brain worked when I started getting into my like teenage years and started liking boys for me. And you know, that was my very much like, you look more at your body when you get a bit older. You get more insecurities. And I had some insecurities, but never like that I hated my body or wanted to starve myself. I never went on a diet or anything like that. Like ever, never felt conscious of food. I just wasn't really the most comfortable in my body sometimes, but never like, oh my God, I'm really big. I just felt this way. And by the way, I am never ever calling anyone else big or too skinny or really skinny or anything like that. I'm speaking about my body. So this is my way of trying to not offend anyone. This is me. I'm just talking about me and weight. And I want to be open and honest with you guys about it because I feel like I've had a barrage of comments, especially before I was pregnant, about weight loss and all these things. And I want to just tell you a timeline and journey and hopefully that we can have an open and honest conversation. I mean, there was a point where I was probably overeating because I have a really bad sweet tooth. But I think I get it from my parents because my dad literally eats 6 custard tarts in one go. My mum, when she wakes up in the middle of the night to go for the toilet, she's like, I've got low blood sugar. She's got a drawer next to her bed full of like jelly tots and sweets. And I remember I used to go to my friend's house when I was younger and she used to have Nutella. My parents didn't have Nutella. We didn't have Nutella because I would eat the whole jar. We weren't allowed things like Robinson squash. We used to have high juice. Do you know what I mean? Or we just had diluted juice. My parents were more worried about our heart and our teeth. My parents would go on and on about my teeth with sugar. It was never ever anything like, you can't eat this many because, you know, you're gonna put on weight. It was never like that. To the point where I used to go to my friends on a weekend and I would have 8 pieces of Nutella on toast. 8 pieces. And then I discovered cutting off the crusts and oh my God, I dipped the crust and that's unhealthy. Do you know what I mean? Like I was eating an unhealthy amount just for breakfast and then eating more and more and more, and that's not good for anyone's heart. But even dancing, I never got really, really insecure. My insecurity started more when I was about 17, 18, when I had a boyfriend and then like if I'd ever have like a bicker with someone or if I'd fall out with anyone or if, you know, ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends and all those different things, if they ever needed to offend me in any way, they'd call me fat. And I never saw myself as big. So when they started saying this to me, I used to be like, God, everyone's saying it. I must be chubby or chunky or fat. Because honestly, you start to believe that. That was like their only like retaliation, or that was their only thing that they'd say to me. Like, oh, I don't know why you're with her, she's fat. So I would start to be like, okay. And like girls that knew my ex-boyfriend would be like, she's big, like da-da-da. And yeah, if they'd ever argue with me or like, it would always be that I'm fat. So then I was like, right, well, I must be. And that's what really started me feeling insecure. And then into the mix of it, when I was 19, I went to dance university. Whoop, whoop, whoop. No, I was 18. I was 18 and I deferred. So I went to a university in London where, wow, I didn't realise anything before I got there. I think my parents bubble wrapped me. They must have, because I mean, I lived in Brighton. I moved to London and I was like, oh my God, there's so many people doing drugs. And people are like, you came from Brighton? They love it there. And I'd be like, wow, my parents must have wrapped me up in cotton wool and like literally just, yeah. So I remember being at dance university and I was in quite a toxic relationship when I was younger, and it was unhealthy. It was an unhealthy relationship. And yeah, both sides, you know, I'm not saying anything about them. I was just, yeah, in an unhealthy relationship. I was deeply, deeply insecure. And just like anyone, you know, we all have insecurities. And I remember going to university and saying to them that I was going to defer my first year because I was traveling up because I didn't want to move up away from him. So I was doing the commute every morning. It was like 5 a.m. in the morning. I'd get back at like 10 o'clock at night, and I'd still have to do all my commuting and the next day, but also still do all my learning in the evening, because when you go to like a dance, drama, singing place, I went to a musical theatre university, you know, you get more practical, less written. So you have to come home and do your written in the evenings. I remember not going in and then going up there, and I'd lost a bit of weight. I had lost a bit of weight. So at this point, my jeans were loose on me, and I just know I'd lost a lot of weight because everyone kept commenting on it when I got to university. And I went to meet my principal and say I'm going to defer and come back the next term, the next year, next term. I'd completed one term, I'd banked that. And I remember them saying to me like, you look so good, you look so healthy. And I remember being like, I'm so unhealthy. I'm losing weight because I'm in a toxic relationship. You know, when you're like, this can't be real. This can't be real. Because even my boyfriend at the time was like, you've lost too much weight. But I wasn't dieting. I was eating so much. But when I am stressed and anxious and living on my nerves, I tend to lose weight. Anyway, so I deferred and I came back the next year. Healthier in my body, probably not in their eyes, if you know what I mean. So I came back, and then in my second year, I got really ill with a stomach condition, and I was in hospital for a very long time. Now, when I was in hospital, I didn't even really eat because I couldn't eat. They were feeding me these little drinks, but I couldn't keep anything down. So if you actually look at it, I should have lost a lot of weight in hospital. However, I ballooned in hospital, very, very swollen. I wasn't ever, you know, I was unhealthy for me because I was so swollen. I remember looking at myself being like, I just didn't feel myself. And that was probably being on all this medication. I had a drip in here, a drip in here, a drip in here, a drip in here, of all different drugs. And then obviously I was put on steroids, and steroids make you more swollen and, you know, bigger. And if you look at other people with my condition, I remember I used to be like, well, they've got gastroparesis and they're, you know, the other way, and they used to say they can't put on weight and they're severely underweight. And I'd be looking at myself thinking, I'm so bloated and I'm so swollen. Like, I remember just being like swollen. It was almost like someone had blown me up, if you know what I mean. It was all water weight, and it was all medicine. It was all medicine. So then when I first started YouTube, oh, I should tell you about this. I remember coming back in second year and I had to complete all of my modules in the space of, it was just horrendous. It was like a week or 2 weeks. It was just horrendous. It was like, they made me do so many modules and I had to learn it from a DVD on this laptop screen, and I was so ill. Anyway, I had to complete all of one term in a week. Like, it was just horrendous. It was just horrendous. So then, and that's like all dances, all singing, all acting, all written things. And it was just, yeah, it just, anyway, we don't need to speak about that. But I came back and I remember I did my ballet, and my ballet was my strongest dance. And because it was the one I trained in, you know, whatever. And I was in set one and all these things. And I remember they gave me 40 marks when normally I used to get like 87, 90, 92. Gave me 40 marks, which is just a pass. And I remember being like, what's going on? So I went and queried it, because basically it's run through a university. It's obviously a college, a dance college that's run through a university. It's not a university standalone. It's run through a university in London. And they said to me, do you want to watch the tape back? I can't remember specifically word for word, but they were like, do you want to watch the tape back? Because honestly, it was uncomfortable to watch. You know, when you were balancing, you just looked so bloated. And I'm thinking, but I was balancing. So I was actually doing the exact position you wanted me to, whether it was an arabesque, elevate, you know, rising in an arabesque, I was doing it. But apparently, because I look bloated, you're going to give me a 40. You know, when you're like, so I had to query it and went through the university process, etc, etc, etc. But that, as well, I was like, this is so unhealthy. This is so unhealthy. She was saying to me, just going bloated, I can't dance, you know, like, what? And I remember trying to suck in so much when I was dancing, because obviously, you know, you don't want to stick out and you don't want to hunch up. You've got to have a really good pose and posture. But then also I was like trying to suck in, but because I was so distended from all the drugs and being so constipated and whatever, apparently I must have looked horrendous doing my ballet. Anyway, after graduating university, I went into working a lot. I was working 2 jobs plus trying to do YouTube. I was also doing another job of flyering and doing all these things. And I was taking on every single inch of work I could to help fund living in London. And I ended up working nights as well. So I was working nights, but also working mornings at Hollister as a manager, and then coming to work the night shift at a club in London on the door. And working nights, I'm going to be honest with you, I really, really believe it contributed to me being unhealthy, because I'm not unhealthy in the sense like eating McDonald's, because I don't believe that you can I think unhealthiness is your body. It's not about what you look like, it's about the internal, you know, functions and stuff. I don't believe like if I ate McDonald's every single day for the rest of my life, yes, that's unhealthy. But like I say, everything in moderation. But what was happening to me is my break was like 9:30 to 10:30 in the evening, because I'd start at like 5, 6, sometimes 4 for the early shift, but mostly times 6. And I would have a break from like 9:30 to 10:30. I would eat my dinner at that time. And I've only ever grown up eating my dinners at 6. I still do that now. That's how we grew up. That's how you know, it's like my body, like past 7 o'clock, I'm like, oh my God, I'm ravenous. I'm so hungry. So I eat dinner at like 6, 6:30. So to eat a full meal on your stomach at 9:30, 10:30, then throughout the night, because I'd be doing the night shift, I'd be drinking all the time, not alcohol, orange juice, pineapple juice is my favorite. I'd be having food, sweets all the time, all the night to get through. And I would work like 5, 6 nights a week sometimes, minimum 5 nights. And I had a really unhealthy relationship with food. Like when I'd finish work, like 4 a.m, 5 a.m, I'd go and get McDonald's breakfast, or we'd all go and get a breakfast. And it was unhealthy. Like, and then I'd sleep in the day, but then I'd wake up and be so hungry. And I feel like the night shift, it wasn't about necessarily what I was eating. The working nights and where I was at in London, I'm going to be honest with you, I think I was very low. I think I actually was just powering through being slightly depressed, because I was in and out of hospital with my stomach. I was really lonely. I had friends, but I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like London was a little bit, I love it. I look back and think, oh wow, I lived in London for so many years and da da da. But then also I'm like, so happy where I'm at now, and moving home to Brighton was honestly the best thing that ever happened to me, because when I moved home to Brighton, I definitely had to relearn to have a schedule. And, you know, I thank you guys for that, because I moved home to Brighton because I went full time with YouTube, and this was back in 2017. And I've been doing YouTube for 6 months when I was able to go full time for it. So I was amazed. I was like, oh my God, I can quit these clubs. I can go home, you know, I can work on myself. And then reliving and relearning how to have a stable structure and a routine was really hard for me, because when you work nights for so many years, having to then get back into a normal routine was really hard. And I'd wake up and, you know, especially when you were trying to get through shifts, all I would eat was like chocolate bar after chocolate bar, dairy free at this point, because obviously my stomach condition had happened. But moving home, I was able to actually sit down and eat a meal instead of eating out all the time. I'd spend all my wages because I was working here, there, in Westfield, this. I would just always be eating out and never, ever able to cook from home. And when I first started YouTube, I think a lot of people say, oh my God, you were so much, like a lot of people comment on my weight because of how I looked when I began YouTube. When I began YouTube was in 2017. I was, my goodness, what was I, 24? Let's say I was 24. You guys do the math. Anyway, I'm 28 now, I was 24. And I started in February. My birthday's in March. So yeah, I would have probably been, no, I was 23. Because I met Spencer when I was 24. I was 23. And I was 23 and I was a size 10. I think if you look back at all my hauls, I was a size 10. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, you lost so much weight. But I was never unhealthy before, and I know that. I feel like, especially on the camera, it does add probably a little bit of, they say the camera adds 10 pounds. I probably believe it's a little bit, yeah. But I was so swollen from steroids. Like my face, I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's not my face. And that's not me saying I looked bad, but I was unhealthy because I had so much medication. I was in such a bad place with my stomach. I was uploading YouTube videos from the hospital bed. I remember I'd go on Snapchat and be like, sorry guys, I'm in hospital, I'm gonna upload, I'm gonna get my dad to log into my YouTube and all these things. And yeah, it was just, I was going through a lot. I wasn't great in my mental health. I never released, you know, a happy hormone, the serotonin happy hormone. And I feel like when I met Spencer was when I started to really find that true happiness. And I've never been on a diet. I've never restricted myself from eating. I've never had an unhealthy relationship with food. I can wholeheartedly stand here and say that. Even when I thought I would have an unhealthy relationship with food and my parents were divorcing, you know, never. And I'm gonna be honest with you, my weight did change a lot, but that's not me controlling that. My weight changed because I grew up. I started getting on top of my stomach condition. I started really knowing what worked with my stomach. I can't eat lots of healthy foods. A lot of sweet potato can really aggravate my stomach. I don't know still to this day what aggravates my stomach so much, but Renalia, throughout pregnancy, having her, I mean, during pregnancy, that was the biggest relief I've had for 8 years. Like, I love her so much. Like, I love her for so many reasons. The fact that she's my baby. I think she's the most magical thing in the world. I unconditionally love her. But oh my goodness, wow, I love her even more because during pregnancy, I was able to have things I hadn't had for so long. And my nutritionist and my specialist and my midwife and everyone, my health visitors were all working with me and so supportive, and it was just magic. And also I love her so much more because she's brought me and my mum so much closer. Like, if I couldn't love her anymore, if I tried, I love her even that much more. Like, just, yes. And I'm gonna be honest with you, when I met Spencer, we started having loads of sex. I hadn't had sex for years. I've been single and not had sex for years because I had toxic relationships, I had my stomach condition, and I just didn't want to be with anyone. I wanted to be on my own. And when you're in and out of hospital, the last thing you're thinking of is sex. I had no sex drive. I remember going to the doctor and being like, I've got no sex drive. And they were like, it's, you know, a mix of all the medication you're on and it's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. It's normal. And then when I met Spencer, I was like, oh my God, I had this mad sex drive where I was like, I want to have sex all day, every day. And I'm telling you, that released so much endorphins for me. Like, it makes me feel good. And then I guess I was doing exercise that I'd never done before for ages. So then maybe that was a contributing factor. I don't know. But I do know that I look back at my body at some points and I'm like, that's not healthy for me. Like, size 6 clothes were baggy on me. And that's not saying a size 6 is too small, by the way. I'm saying that for my body, for my BMI, for my healthy weight, you know, my physique, my height, that wasn't healthy when my clothes were hanging off me. And, you know, I feel so lucky. Like, I absolutely feel so grateful. My body has literally carried a human, birthed a human, and I feel like I love my body the most I've ever loved it because I'm so appreciative of what it went through and how it is now. So amazed that my body can even do that, but I've put no pressure on myself. I've never, ever weighed myself. Like, I've never ever stood on scales and gone, this is what I weigh. And that's what my parents have always told me. And that's my relationship with it. I've never ever weighed myself. I remember me and Spencer did a skydive in Australia and they had to weigh you to check like what you weigh before you go. I don't really know. And then you get weighed when you get back. Or no, you get weighed to see who you're gonna fly and jump out with. And I remember just looking away. Don't need to see the number on the scales. I don't need to know that. It's how I feel in my body. It's how my clothes fit. That's how I know. That sometimes when I'm coming on my period, not now, because obviously I haven't had a period because I'm breastfeeding and I've had a baby. I'm 4.5 months postpartum. I think it's 4.5 months now. But yeah, I don't believe I should look at how much I weigh, because it's not about that. You know, people can have different bone density. It's about how I feel in my clothes. You know, sometimes when I get really bloated and a lot of water retention, the week before my period, I'm like, coming on my period. I know that I need to have some dandelion tea and drink a lot to help me get rid of this water weight. But I've never ever weighed myself. Like, I know in pregnancy they weighed me at the very beginning, and then they weigh you like 26 weeks. They weigh you sometimes, whatever. They weighed me, and I remember seeing a different number because it's at the top of your notes. So they say like your number at the beginning, but my number at the beginning, my BMI was unhealthy. Like this was the only time I looked it up. When they weighed me the last time, I looked up on the internet, like, how much weight should you gain in pregnancy? And it was like telling me that I'd gained an unhealthy amount. And then I was like, whoa, if you're telling me I've gained an unhealthy amount, then I'm getting off this, because that's just not normal. Like, I don't need to know that. I'm healthy. As long as they know I'm healthy, the baby's healthy, that's all that matters. Do you know what I mean? But I'm gonna be honest with you, there was a point where I feel like I look back on photos and I'm like, oh, you look a bit ill. Like, to me, that's my own perspective. I don't like looking back at some photos, because I say to Spencer, like, how was I like that? And he was like, I didn't even really notice you were like that, because when you live with someone, you don't really even notice their weight, because I was eating so much. Like, I eat a lot. I'm not complaining about it. I love eating. A lot of people used to say like that I had a problem, like, oh, you've got an eating disorder, because I'd lost a lot of weight. But also, that can be really triggering. And I actually think that I was triggered and given a bit of anxiety by so many questions all the time, because I remember thinking, my God, I haven't done anything, and they're saying that I look ill, and they're saying that I've got an eating disorder. Well, if I gain any weight, like, I remember thinking like, no, that's not healthy. That's not a healthy thought. And I'd never thought like that before in my life. But I remember thinking, God, they're putting so much pressure on my body being this weight. God forbid, like, what are they going to say when do you know what I mean? I remember thinking that and then being like, no, that's not healthy. You just eat what you want, do what you want. And if you are going through a certain period of stress, I'm going to tell you one thing. When I have anxiety and when I have stress, I'm living on my nerves. I tend to have more toilet breaks, which normally with my stomach condition doesn't really happen. During lockdown, I definitely went through a stage of really, really feeling anxious, really nervous. I was getting a lot of hate online, and I was just on my nerves 24/7. Like, when you go on an app and it says to put in your weight, no chance. Like, I've seen people go through eating disorders, and I've seen friends and, you know, people that I love go through these things, and I feel like I don't want to have to weigh myself, because I know how I feel in my own body, and that's what's important to me. Editing this back, and this little webcam is not the one, but I just want to say that if you are struggling with that and you do feel like, because I feel like, I don't know, if I was to weigh myself and continue to weigh myself, would I become obsessive with it? Like, would I? Like, how do you know? You wouldn't. You know, it's all well and good saying like, I don't want to weigh myself, but I feel like, for me, I'm protecting my own sanity. But I know that there are so many people out there that really, really do struggle with it and weigh themselves, then get obsessive with it. And obviously there's people that weigh themselves just because they want to check in on their body and their BMI, and that's completely healthy. I think that was food that was just coming out of my mouth. And that's completely healthy. But I feel like, would I then feel like, oh, 1 month, oh, Imogen, you're right there, and then weigh myself again, and the next day, I don't know. I just feel like it wouldn't be healthy for me to do that. But I know that some people can just weigh themselves happily and healthily and don't want to offend anyone there. But also, if you are going through that and wanting to weigh yourself and you feel like you're being triggered by it, then please try not to. But also, it's easier said than done. But try and seek help if you feel like you're going down a destructive path, because, you know, if we could all help each other in this world, then it'd be such a nicer place to live. But then, oh my God, when I got pregnant, I had people like, your bump's too small. And then I had people saying, oh my God, you've got so big. And it's like, wow, which end of the spectrum am I? Is my bump too small? And also, I did actually go for growth scans at the end because my bump was measuring small. And I really felt angry towards people for commenting on how big my bump was or how small my bump was, because I remember like someone around the area we live in was like, oh my God, your bump's so big. And I remember thinking, oh my God, it's not big enough. I'm getting measured for my bump not being big enough. I'm worried about my baby. You know, it's triggering that people comment, and I know it comes from a good place, but also I feel like there has to be a line that we draw when we talk about people's weight. If people have addressed it and told you that, but then I know it's hard because a lot of people who do have you know, disorders, they are in denial and they push you away because they don't want help. But, you know, my friends and family, the people that I listen to, and I remember my mum at one point being like, you know, are you okay? Do you want to speak about anything? Because I'm worried a bit about your weight. And I remember being like, Mum, I'm coming down this weekend, let me show you. Obviously, I know that people can eat and then go to the toilet. I'm aware, I know that that sounds, but yeah, that's not me. I just wanted to kind of explain, because then obviously after pregnancy, a lot of people are like, how did you lose a postpartum weight? Oh my God, you've bounced back so quick. And it's like, God, there is so much pressure on women. And I know that that's a compliment, but also there's so much pressure on men. There is so much pressure on all of us. There's so much pressure on whoever you are. I feel like weight is such a difficult subject to speak about, because you care for people and it comes from a good place, but then also you can be triggering. Like, I remember when I was getting, you know, online hate and then getting questioned so much about my weight, it was really triggering, because I was like, oh my God, I'm eating and I don't know what's going on, you know, and then I'm worried about my stomach condition, and then I'm speaking to my specialist thinking, am I okay? You know, like, am I all right? When actually it's just your body sometimes. I just want to say, I don't know really what I'm trying to say, because I'm trying to say, don't be so, I don't know how to say it. Sometimes there's a time and a place, and sometimes there's a line. I feel like people have to draw that, because there's caring, and then there's being rude, and there's also being triggering, and there's also being insensitive, because you don't know what that person's going through. You don't actually know what that person's going through. You know, it's like the questions when you get married, when you have a baby, when you're gonna have a baby, like, that's triggering for a lot of people. And I just think we just have to be a bit more open, and also we just have to be less judgmental and maybe a bit more sensitive to people's lives and situations, I think. I don't really know what I've tried to say here. I hope I've come across all right. I've talked for so long. I've spoken for 35 minutes. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to edit this. But I really hope that we can just have more open conversations on this channel. And I love you guys so much, and thank you for caring about me. And I just wanted to be honest and give you a massive journey. Hopefully that you guys will feel a bit better about that, about yourselves and about different journeys, and just understanding, you know, reach out to your friends if you are worried, and reach out to family members, but also understand that there has to be a boundary. And, you know, sorry if it's a bit random, but I just wanted to have an open, honest conversation. And if you are struggling, please do reach out to people, because there is help out there. If there's anyone suffering with an eating disorder or anything like that, I will leave a link in my description to some help. I really hope you get help, and please definitely reach out, because you're not alone in this. There's so many people out there like you. You will get through this. I promise you will get through this. I love you guys so much. Until next time, I'm gonna love you, and I'm gonna leave you. Bye.